It's Kevin with Absolute Outdoors, and today I want to discuss 5 different types of firearms that I would strongly consider getting if I were new to firearms. Now, each item is going to be something that I think would work best for me and most other people out there. It may not work best for you, and that's okay. Take everything that I have to say with a grain of salt and consider what would work best for you in your own situation. Now, the first type of firearm that I would strongly consider getting is some sort of primary rifle. For me, it would most likely be an AR-15 type rifle, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. Here I have a custom Aero Precision build that I did myself. And as you'll notice, we have like a 16-inch barrel, adjustable stock, all that fun stuff, detachable 30-round magazine. There's a lot of reasons why an AR rifle would be one of my first purchases, and one of the reasons is because it's just so customizable, so versatile. Pretty much every aspect of this rifle that you want to change to your liking, you can do, and usually you can do it for a fair price point. Most of these rifles are going to be fairly reasonable as far as pricing is concerned. This rifle right here was about $1,200 for me to build, but you can certainly get something that is very functional, like a Ruger AR-556, I believe is what they call it. Basically an AR-15, I believe, for around $600-700. Rifles like that are totally functional and come with everything you need short of ammunition to get started and get down to the range. Now again, this is one of the most popular and common rifles in the United States, and there's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of law enforcement agencies will have rifles similar to this with them in their own vehicles or whatever they're doing, and there's a lot of reasons why it's very popular, right? So another reason why it's very common, very popular, is that you can chamber this rifle in a lot of different calibers. So this one happens to be in a 5.56 223, meaning you can shoot 5.56 223 safely out of this rifle, and that's one of the most common offerings for this rifle is a 5.56 223. But there's a lot of other options as well. You can get this rifle in a 9mm. You can get it in a 300 blackout with it. You can even change out the upper receiver, get a 300 blackout, and use the same lower receiver, even the same magazines. You can get some larger calibers too. You can get AR-10, what most people would refer to it as 308 7.62 by 5.1, which is definitely a nicer round. It's got more power, more energy to it. And you could even do things like 300 Win Mag or 222 LR. I've seen those before. And yeah, so there's a lot of options, a lot of reason that you would want to consider an AR type rifle as your first. Now certainly there's plenty of other solid options. You could do a Ruger Mini 14, very similar to that, same type of ammunition. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold. And there's other rifles as well that you could consider that are very similar to that, besides the AR platform. That would be my first pick. My second pick would most likely be a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun. Now here we have a Remington 870 pump-action shotgun. These shotguns are very common throughout the United States. They have a long history of use, and they are certainly something that is tried and true. So one of the reasons why I think you should strongly consider getting a shotgun as one of your first firearms is they have a wide range of uses. They can be used for hunting, lots of different game, and they can be used for recreation, such as shooting clay pigeons or bottles or steel targets. They can also be used for a defensive situation. There are plenty of loads and variety of loads as well that you can load into a 12-gauge shotgun or a different gauge of shotgun. So this 12 gauge, for example, when you're going to go hunting, I do a lot of hunting here in Minnesota, as you might be able to tell. I do a lot of whitetail hunting, but you can hunt small game, usually like birds, rabbits, squirrels, and fox, coyotes, stuff like that, very effectively with a 12 gauge shotgun. And then of course birds, like I mentioned, like pheasants, geese, quail, pigeons, stuff like that. And then of course you can shoot, pretty large game as well, like a whitetail deer. I hunt regularly with a 12 gauge shotgun and a slug, and it's quite effective for that. Like So that's one solid reason to look at a 12 gauge shotgun or another gauge is hunting. A wide range of hunting applications that you can use them for. Defensive situations. Now, I'm not an expert in this, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to conclude that buckshot, a slug, a heavy target load, or game load will be very effective at any target that you could imagine. Say a potential threat from another person that wishes to do you harm in a defensive situation. Those loads are going to be very effective depending on the situation. A shotgun may not always be your best choice, but it will do a lot of damage if you need it to. So, another area that I want to touch on with the shotgun is it is very fun to shoot for recreation. Shooting clay pigeons and stuff like that, it's certainly a blast, no pun intended. And, just shooting targets on the ground, whatever you want to do with it, really. It's a lot of fun. It's fairly inexpensive to shoot. A good shotgun, one that comes to my mind right away is like a Mossberg Maverick 88. Those can be had for, $200-300, and for everything considered, especially the price, it's a fantastic shotgun. So, pump action shotgun, definitely something that I would pick up if I were in the market for a firearm as a new firearm owner or whatever. So, the third thing that I want to touch on, the third type of firearm that I would strongly consider getting if I were just getting into firearms, is some sort of handgun. Now, here we have a Glock 17 Gen 5 chambered in 9mm. This one has the optic slide cut, if you couldn't already tell. So, a handgun in general, a lot of people are going to use this for personal protection, concealed carry weapons, stuff like that. It fulfills that role very well, and as you can imagine, something like this, of course, is going to be small, it's going to be easy to conceal. Generally, stuff like this is going to be relatively easy to shoot, depending on what you have and your specific situation. For me, this is fairly easy for me to shoot. But yeah, handgun, of course, as you can imagine, versus other types of firearms, it fills those unique roles very well, where these other types of firearms don't cover those areas, such as concealed carry, very well, where you really can't do that. So, a good handgun is definitely a good choice. I like Glock handguns, especially if I'm just getting started and I have to pick one. It's probably going to be a Glock handgun. Now, you could get away with a number of other really good options too, such as Sig Sauer or an H&K or Smith & Wesson or Kimber or something like that. Just do some research, figure out what you're buying, make sure it's a good buy, it's a reliable weapon. I like Glock, they go bang every time, and they're just really good firearms, and they're at a fair price. So that's my third pick right there, is going to be a handgun of some type. For me, it would probably be a 9mm Glock of some type. The ammunition, for example, is readily available all throughout the United States. It's relatively inexpensive. That's a common theme you're going to see in this video, is a lot of firearms that are chambered in ammunition that is very common. It has a long track record, and it's usually, compared to a lot of other types of ammunition, it's relatively affordable. So that's my third pick right there, is going to be a 9mm handgun of some type. Doesn't necessarily have to be a Glock. Now, my fourth pick is going to be something heavier hitting, right? Something with more oomph, something that can get further down range, hit targets accurately. Now, this doesn't have to be a bolt-action rifle. Here we have a Savage Axis 308 with a few custom options. Now, again, I was a precision shooter for about 4 years or so. I did a lot of like air rifle, small bore, and some larger weapon shooting, training, stuff like that with certified coaches. I really learned a lot. I came to like the bolt-action rifle during my time doing all of that. So that's my preference, is the bolt-action rifle. You might like something like a AR-10 or some other semi-automatic weapon. My point here is to get a larger caliber weapon, something maybe with some good glass or some other optic that will get you out at a further distance. So let's say you like to do long-range shooting or hunting. This is a good option for either of those, even if it's just 100 or 200 yards or 300 yards or somewhere in there. A good option for semi-long range, long-range target shooting, hunting, is to have a higher larger caliber weapon. Now a 308, of course, is going to go out to 500 plus, 1,000 yards, something like that, and still deliver plenty of energy and mass to take a good kill shot, as long as you know what you're doing and you have decent equipment and all that fun stuff. And now, of course, you can make good shots with, say, a 5.56, 223, or something like that, but it really limits you on the amount of energy and what do they call it, blunt force trauma that you inflict on, say, an animal that you're trying to take down if you're hunting, for example. Or if you're just trying to reach out to a target at a great distance, you really do need that much more power, mass, energy, velocity, stuff like that. A larger cartridge is going to deliver that to you versus a smaller cartridge is going to make things a lot more difficult at a greater range. So having a larger cartridge in general is going to be a very good idea to have more of a well-rounded arsenal, so to speak, to get out further distances, more energy, more power, more accuracy, less bullet drop, stuff like that if you're hunting, target shooting. You get the point, right? So, and again, 308 is a very, very common round that is in the United States. You can find it just about anywhere ammunition is sold. It's reasonably priced. It is something that you have a lot of options for. Pretty much everyone who makes ammunition is going to be tooled up to make this, like most of these calibers. 9mm, 5.56, 223, 12 gauge. All of that stuff is like top 5 most common types of ammunition in the United States. So you should have no problem finding that. That's something that I like. You may decide to do something a little bit different, but I really do like having that availability, all of those options, and that long track record for that ammunition, so that I kind of know what I'm dealing with, and I like those options. I like all of that. So that's my preference. You might like something different, something a little bit more exotic, but I like to stick with that. So my fifth option here is going to be, my fifth type of firearm is going to be something like a small bore type rifle, rimfire, that kind of thing. Here we have a Marlin Model 60. Semi-automatic, tube-fed, that kind of thing. Something like this, brand new, can be had for about $200, $300. The Ruger 1022 is another rock-solid option around that price range, at least starting point. You can certainly spend more on them. 22 ammunition is very cheap, so something like this is a solid option for anyone who's more budget conscious or just wants to shoot a lot of ammo and not have to worry about their billfold. Right, and it's also a really good option for anyone who is new to shooting. Maybe they're kind of on the fence with it, or they're not real comfortable around firearms. A 22 is a really, really good starting point. There's virtually no recoil, especially on a firearm like this. The noise is kept down a bit. The experience is just a lot better for someone who doesn't have a whole lot of experience and might be a little nervous around firearms. This is a really good starting point for people like that. Or even younger people who maybe don't have all of their strength or faculties built up, say like a younger child, maybe 12, 14 years old. That's about the age that I started to shoot. And it was with stuff like this, stuff that was easy for me to manage and aim and take control of, really. So that's a really good option. Like, I think 22... I was just at my local Walmart the other day, and they had about 1,400 rounds of ammunition for about $60. So just imagine all the fun you could have shooting pop cans in your backyard or at the range with something like this. It'd take you quite a while to burn through all that ammo. It's also a good option for hunting, say if you're hunting squirrels or rabbits. I've done quite a bit of that with this. And just a side note, rabbits are an excellent table fare if you haven't tried them. But good option for some small game. And yeah, so that's pretty much going to wrap up my 5 picks for my 5 types of weapons that I would strongly consider getting first if I were just getting into firearms. I feel like a lot of people make what I think is a mistake, where they go and they buy a bunch of firearms and they don't really cover their bases very well. I mean, here we've got a pretty good, well-rounded arsenal. I feel like we got something that's a small bore, we got a long-range, higher power weapon. we've got a handgun, we've got a pump action shotgun, and then we have like a sort of like a primary rifle, you might call it, like an AR-15, or it could be any number of different weapons. And I just feel like this is a really good starting point for most people if they're just getting into it and they're serious about owning firearms and they want to have a well-rounded arsenal. I feel like this is a really good starting point, especially for me. It would definitely be. So that's the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and please let me know if you have any feedback, any questions on any of these firearms, for example. I'd be happy to do a video on any of them or answer any questions you might have. Any feedback on the video or any questions about owning firearms in general, just leave a comment below and I would be happy to help you or answer any questions to the best of my ability. If you have any information you'd like to add to the video, go ahead and do that as well. I'd love to hear from you. And please like and subscribe. It really helps me to keep making content for you guys. And I hope you have a great day. And I'll catch you next time.